The early signing period for National Signing Day is right around the corner, and Georgia Tech can make the biggest splash in program history. Now, in this video, I'm going to highlight the incoming recruiting class 2025 of Georgia Tech and how this class can make an impact that will set up this program to be in elite status for the foreseeable, aka distant future. Now you have to stick with me till the end because, like I said, I'm going to go through not only the recruiting class going forward, but what players are good that they need to retain and what players are the diamonds in the rough that they need to figure out ways to get the ball, to put on weight, to develop so that they can have a positive impact and really change the overall direction of this program. Now, to give you some initial highlights or some stats, Georgia Tech currently has the 17th best class in the nation, which is a staunch improvement from the last previous years. For them to have a top 25 rated class in the country, it's really, really, really good for a team who 5, maybe 6 years ago ran the triple option offense. So it's amazing. They currently have 24 high school commits. And just kind of give you some background. This is per 24/7 Sports. And also, I am not including transfers in this. This is just the early high school signing recruiting class. Now, overall, just looking at this class, it's a very, very balanced class. It has a lot of players, a lot of needs for Georgia Tech. Not only do they have a lot of offensive linemen, they have some defensive linemen sprinkled in. They have some skill positions. And pretty much, I would say it is mostly offensive line and defensive back heavy. And if you can focus on those two, hey, you can win a lot of games. Now, what recently has happened in the world of recruiting for the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets? Now, some great things have happened. Number one, they have flipped Tay Harris from Clemson. Now, who is Tay Harris? Why is this very important? And why can this help this team go forward? Now, Tay Harris is a 5'10", 190-pound cornerback, safety, whatever you want to call it. I call him an athlete from Cedartown, Georgia. He's a hometown kid. Now, he's a 4-star. He was committed to Clemson. Something happened with Dabo Swinney's camp. Who cares? But he's on his way to Georgia Tech. He is a very, very, very athletic DB who can elevate the back end of this team. Some people say he's verified running a 4.4, which is amazing. And if you can add elite speed to that defensive back room for Georgia Tech, that's how you compete with not only the Miamis or the Florida States or the Clemsons, but you take it up another level, the Georgias, the Ole Misses, the Ohio States of the world, having elite back end speed. Now, something else that's very important, him combined with Dalen Pinson, that is your cornerback, your DB duo of the future. And if you're able to keep both of those on the roster and sign both of those guys, elite status. Now, moving on, Peyton Joseph has just flipped from Florida State. He is going to commit or so sign with Georgia Tech. Big pickup. 4-star interior offensive line, 4-star, 3-star, but depending on where you're looking at. 24/7 has a 4-star interior offensive line. Earth mover is what I would describe him as. But for them to get him from Florida State, really, really, really good film on this guy. He can add an addition. He's probably going to play guard at the next level. I'm telling you, Brent Key is building this team in the trenches and in the back end. If he continues to sign players that fit that mold, this will be a team, a force to reckon with in the future. Couple other changes. So Justin Hasselhoddle, the individual from Germany, that offensive lineman, he is actually decommitted. He saw a lot of players coming in from the offensive line, and he's like, I don't know about this. Some sites had him as a 4-star. I think he's a true 3-star individual, and originally from Germany, kind of moved over, and I think he went to high school in Georgia. He has actually decommitted. People say he's going to Cal. I just think there's too much talent for him. I mean, but when you got guys such as like Kevin P. Jr., Josh Petty, Damala Duhan. Sorry if I mispronounced him. That 6'6" tackle out of Duluth. It's hard to find a lot of places to play. And basically, Justin Hazelhuddle said, peace out, which I don't think Georgia Tech loses a lot with that decommitment. One more other big news is Rayshawn Dinkins. He is a Georgia guy. He is going to UGA. I don't think Georgia Tech's going to win that battle back. He would have been a phenomenal player to have. I honestly think if he was on the Georgia Tech roster and signed and committed with them, that would have bumped this overall class to like 16th or 15th. But hey, you win some and you lose some. Now going forward, what does Georgia Tech need to do on National Signing Day to win or to have a successful National Signing Day? Now, you have to retain these 4 individuals. Number 1, your workhorse, the main piece of the recruiting class, Josh Petty. You have to make sure he signs on the dotted line. Now, Josh Petty, a little bit about him. Fellowship Christian offensive tackle, 6'5", 265, 5-star, the highest rated recruit since Megatron Calvin Johnson. You have to make sure he signs on the dotted line, because if he doesn't, that can wreck your whole class. Now, a lot of people are saying there's no issues. He's signing, but you got to make sure you get that facts. So that's the number 1 key. Two-way player, really, really, really athletic offensive line. Some, I wouldn't say weaknesses, but some criticisms of him. He's kind of light. He's 265 pounds. He needs to be around that 300, 310 range to play at the college level. But a lot of people are saying he's a guy you could see late in his first year, early in his second year to start for Georgia Tech. Another guy that the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets must make sure signs on the dotted line, and that's Dalen Pinson. I talked about the two-headed monster of him and hey, like I said, you have to make sure both of those guys, more specifically Dalen Pinson, signs, because he's a really, really, really athletic DB that could make a lot of wrongs right in the back end. He can make a lot of plays, and he can help you match up against those really talented athletic receivers that you'll see on that next tier of offenses and that next tier of championship teams. So you have to make sure he stays. Dalen Pinson, he's a Sandy Creek kind of guy as well. Another guy you must make sure you have on the roster when it comes to Wednesday, he has to sign, and that is Christian Garrett. Now, there might be a lot of people that not talk about him, but he is a 6'3", 285 defensive lineman. He's a guy that gets going, and he keeps going. Very high motor, very high productive guy. He can play inside, he can play outside. I see him at that 3-tech maybe, most likely, but you have to make sure he signs, because he could be that piece you need, and he could be that defensive lineman that plays maybe late in his first year, and he'll stay there until his junior or senior year. So you have to retain him. And then last person, I kind of mentioned him earlier, and sorry if I butchered his name, Damola Duhan out of Duluth, that 6'6" tackle. You got to make sure he signs as well. He is a guy that had a lot of interest from a lot of schools. I'm not hearing any chatter, but you just don't want to look up one day and you see he took, a $2 million NIL evaluation from Ohio State. Make sure he signs. Make sure he stays. He's a hometown kid from Duluth, Georgia. He is a guy you want to make sure he's on the roster. And if you do everything you can to keep those guys on the roster, you'll be set going forward. Now, some diamonds in the rough, some guys who you're like, I don't see it now, but could be the future of this program. Number 1, Grady Adamson, the 6'1" quarterback. He is a guy that a lot of people saw him as a premier pocket passer, but he is a guy that has some wheels. I've seen him recently in his senior season running the ball a lot, getting down the field, making plays after a catch. He kind of reminds me of Haynes King a little bit. He's not as tall and athletic as Haynes King, but he is a guy that he can put his shoulder in front of somebody and run him over. So he is a sleeper guy, especially on a quarterback room where you're building. You got Haynes King. You got, I'm drawing a blank on his name. It'll come back to me. But you got some quarterbacks in the quarterback room. You get this guy. You can continue to develop. And he's a guy, very smart kid who can come in, maybe play a game if injuries happen. And then there you go. Next guy, you got to make sure, not make sure, but the next guy that's a diamond in the rough, Carrington Combs out of Hebron. He's that super athletic 6'2", kind of stand up outside linebacker, but he is a guy that I can see come inside and play a little inside linebacker too. Really, I see him all over the field on the defensive side of the ball. He's a guy that could be a diamond in the rough. He made a lot of plays for Hebron. Like I said, very athletic, can move all over the defensive side. If you want him kind of in that star position, or you can have him standing up on the end, or you can have him as a guy that's miking or following a quarterback in a certain situation. He's the guy spying a quarterback in a certain situation. He's the guy that can do it all, and you got to make sure you sign him as well because he's getting a lot of interest recently. Now, overall, I just don't want to bore you. I'm just giving you some highlights, but overall as a class, I think that the strengths of the class is they have a lot of top-end talent. They have a lot of guys, I think, 5, 6, 7, 4-star plus guys that could add immediate value to this team that's building. And you got those guys at different positions throughout the roster. You got those guys at offensive line. You got some in the defensive back end. And you got some guys on the defensive line that can add immediate value. And for Georgia Tech to have that many guys in that top tier talent is a win. I also will say this. Those guys that I just mentioned can come in and play immediately. So you offer yourself some additional depth immediately. You have those guys, you develop them, but you can also plan them early. It gives you an opportunity to develop them while also adding depth to the program. Now, some weaknesses of this recruiting class. Top end heavy is pretty good, and the middle tier is pretty good, but we don't know about those lower end guys. Who are they? Are they actually decent? Or are those guys that you kind of just put in to fill the roster out who could potentially turn out? We don't know about those bottom tier guys, and so those that needs a lot of evaluation, and really that needs a lot of understanding to see, okay, were these guys good? Were these guys diamond in the rough? Or were these guys just filling space as you continue to move on the recruiting class? Next weakness I saw is tight end. I mean, they had 2 tight end commits this class. One was a 6'8" tight end, which could have some potential. He needs to develop. And then another tight end, 6'4" tight end out of Wesleyan. I think going forward, tight end and your tight end development is important for this team in the future. You want to develop tight ends, especially in this type of offense, who you can rely on, who can throw the ball on 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. And I'm not seeing tight end recruits come in that could be the guy, especially in this class. I would have loved to see a 3-4-star tight end who was a guy that you can develop and go for in the future, but I did not see that this year. And then lastly, skill. How much offensive skill did you bring in this year? I saw a few running backs come in that have some great value, but from a top-end perspective, you weren't really able to get that 4-star receiver, 4-star running back. How does that translate in the next level? Are you just going to go to the transfer portal to get that skill? That's something that could be a weakness in the class going forward. But like I said, overall, this is a really, really, really good class for Brent Key to get a top 17 class in the nation is really, really amazing. For him to get a 5-star and a couple really good 4-stars is really a testament to what kind of program he's building going forward. It's just, let's wait and see. We will see how these guys develop, and we'll go from there. But overall, that's my breakdown of this recruiting day and this recruiting schedule going forward. If you enjoyed this video, this is one of my first Georgia Tech breakdowns. If you enjoyed this video, please do me a favor, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. I am just known to do Atlanta professional sports, but I want to dip my toenails in Georgia Tech. So if you enjoyed this video, please do me that. And also leave a comment down below on the guys that you like to see, or you like to highlight, or you want to highlight yourself. I tried to catch as much of the high level recruiting updates as I could. There could have been guys in there that I totally missed, and that's on me. So if you see those guys that you like, hey, what about him? Leave a comment down below. And like always, peace.